Hello, my friend. Welcome back to Timeless English Stories. Take a slow breath, settle into your place, and let this story carry you across time. Imagine a small office at a newspaper in Kansas City. The year is 1919. A young man stands in front of a desk. He holds a stack of drawings in his hands. Funny little drawings made with careful lines, animals with big eyes, small, simple jokes about daily life in the city. He has stayed up late more than one night this week, finishing these pages, hoping they are good enough. An editor sits behind the desk. He is older and tired and busy. Papers cover almost every inch of his desk. He looks through the drawings. Fast. Too fast, the young man thinks, for someone deciding his whole future. The editor does not smile once. Not a single time. Outside the window, the city moves on, loud and quick, full of people who have no idea this small meeting is happening, or how much it will one day matter. The editor puts the drawings down on his desk. He looks at the young man. He speaks slowly, so there is no doubt about his meaning. He says words the young man will never forget. You lack imagination. You have no good ideas. Then he says one more thing. The young man is fired, right now, today. The young man does not argue. He does not raise his voice, even though his hands are shaking a little. He simply picks up his drawings, one by one, and puts them back in his bag. He walks outside, into the street. The street is full of noise, cars, and people walking fast, none of them looking at him twice. He stands there for a moment, holding a stack of paper that one man has just called worthless. He is only 17 years old. He has almost no money saved. He has no job now and no clear plan for tomorrow. What happens to a person who is told he has no imagination in the one field that needs imagination the most? Now picture a different scene. Years later, a bright stage, full of people in fine clothes. Cameras flash. Again and again, a man walks up to receive an award. He shakes hands, smiles, and returns to his seat. Then, later that same night, he walks up again to receive another award. Then another, again and again, across many years of his life. By the end of his life, this man will hold 22 Academy Awards, plus several more given as special honors. No person in the history of film, before him or after him, will ever win more. That same young man from the small newspaper office, once told he had no imagination at all, grew up to build one of the biggest, most beloved entertainment companies the world has ever known. His name is Walt Disney. This is a story that will take us across an entire lifetime, from one quiet street in Kansas City, all the way to a stage full of golden statues. Stay with me, my friend, all the way to the very end of this one. Let's go back to the beginning. American cartoons, in the early 1920s, are still a very new art form. They are not yet the polished, colorful films we know today. Small studios, working out of tiny rooms above shops or in converted garages, draw each single frame by hand. 1 second of film needs many separate drawings. A short cartoon can need thousands of pages, all drawn by hand, one at a time, by artists earning very little money for very long hours. These small studios face a hard problem. They can make a film, but they cannot show it to the public alone. A single studio, working from one small building, has no way to reach thousands of theaters across the country by itself, no matter how good its drawings are. It needs someone else to help, a person or a company that decides which films reach real theaters and which films never get seen at all, no matter how good they are. People in the business call this person a distributor. One such man works out of New York City. His name is Charles Mintz. He is sharp and careful with money, and very good at business deals. He controls which cartoons reach the big screen, and on what terms. For a small studio, far away in the Midwest, Mintz can open the door to real success. Or he can close that door completely, without much warning at all. Many small animation studios open and close within just a year or two. Money is always tight. Theaters pay very little for each short film, and a studio must sell many, many prints just to cover the cost of ink, paper, and wages for a small team of artists. Almost no one in this young business becomes rich quickly. Most simply hope to survive long enough to try again next month. Just 1 year earlier, in 1918, a teenage Disney had lied about his age to join the Red Cross and drive ambulances in France, near the end of the First World War. He was too young for the regular army, so this was his only way to take part. He returns home in late 1918, only to find himself, within months, sitting in that newspaper office, being told he has no imagination at all. In 1919, right after losing his job at the newspaper, 18-year-old Walt Disney does not give up on drawing. Instead, he starts teaching himself animation. He works at night, after other jobs during the day, drawing frame after frame, learning the craft mostly alone, with only a few borrowed books and a lot of patience. Walt Disney is born in Chicago in 1901, the fourth of 5 children. He grows up mostly on a small farm near Marceline, Missouri, and later in Kansas City. His family moves often, always because money is tight. His father tries several jobs: farming, building work, running a small newspaper business. But none of them bring steady money for long, and each move means new schools, new streets, and new neighbors for young Walt to get used to all over again. As a boy, Walt wakes up very early, long before sunrise, to deliver newspapers before school. He does this for years, in the cold and in the heat, walking the same streets again and again, sometimes falling asleep at his school desk from pure tiredness by mid-morning. His father keeps most of the money Walt earns from this route to help pay the family's bills. There is little time left over for rest, or for play, or simply for being a child. This is the first closed door, a childhood with almost no free time and almost no extra money for dreams of any kind, and almost no adult around to say that drawing pictures could ever become a real job. The second closed door comes in 1923. Disney's first real company, a small animation studio called Laugh-O-Gram, runs into serious trouble. The studio makes short fairy tale cartoons, but it cannot bring in enough money to pay its own artists on time. For a while, Disney pays his small team out of his own pocket. He sleeps in the office some nights to save the cost of rent elsewhere. He even eats cold beans from a can because there is no money left for anything better. Slowly, week by week, the studio runs out of cash completely. It closes down for good. Disney has to leave Kansas City with almost nothing in his pockets, carrying just one suitcase and a single finished film reel, on a train heading west, toward Los Angeles, and an uncertain future. Even here, in this hard moment, we see the first sign of who Walt Disney really is. He has a real gift for telling stories through pictures. He can take an old idea, even a very simple character, and find a fresh new angle that no one else has thought of yet. Where other artists see a plain drawing of an animal, Disney sees a character with a personality, a small history, and a way of moving that makes an audience care about it within just a few seconds of watching. This gift will carry him through every hard year still ahead of him. But there is a real weakness in him too, and it is worth naming clearly. He trusts people too easily, especially in business. He signs deals quickly, sometimes without reading every single line closely enough, more focused on the art itself than on the fine print underneath his own signature. This weakness feels small at first, almost unimportant, the kind of thing a busy young artist barely notices in the middle of chasing a dream. Later in this story, it will cost him something very important indeed. One more thing about young Disney is worth remembering, my friend. Every single time something fails around him, he does not simply give up and walk away. blaming bad luck or other people. He treats each failure as a piece of information, a chance to look closely at what went wrong, and then to start again, building something a little better than what came before. This one habit, more than any single talent, will shape almost everything still ahead of him. After arriving in Los Angeles with almost nothing, Disney first finds some small success with a series called The Alice Comedies, short films that mix a real live-action girl with drawn cartoon characters around her. These films are clever, and they slowly build his reputation in the industry, but they never become a huge hit on their own. Disney knows he needs one strong character that audiences will remember and ask for again and again. In 1927, working now from a small studio in Los Angeles, Disney creates his first truly successful character of that kind. A cheerful cartoon rabbit named Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Charles Mintz sends these short films out to a company called Universal Pictures. Audiences across the country love Oswald right away. Toy companies even start making small Oswald dolls to sell in stores. The films do very well at the box office, and Disney finally starts to feel some real success after years of struggle. For the first time in his career, Disney hires more artists, moves into a bigger studio space, and even buys his very first new car. It feels, for a little while, like the hard years are finally behind him. In early 1928, hoping to ask for more money for future Oswald films, Disney travels by train all the way to New York to meet with Mintz in person. The trip takes several days. He rehearses what he will say the whole way there. He walks into that meeting full of confidence, sure that Mintz will simply say yes to his request, and that the two of them will keep working together for years to come. The meeting does not go the way he expects, not even close. Mintz tells him something shocking, something that changes everything in an instant. Universal, not Disney, legally owns the full rights to the character of Oswald. Disney signed away those rights years earlier, in the small print of an early contract, without fully understanding what he was giving up. He was only ever the man who drew Oswald, never the man who truly owned him. There is worse news still, waiting right behind that first shock. Mintz has already, quietly and carefully, hired away almost Disney's entire team of artists, weeks before this very meeting even took place, offering them more money to simply keep making Oswald cartoons without Disney at all. Disney is sitting across the table from a man who has already taken his character and his people before saying a single word about any of it. Let's pause here for a moment, my friend. On the long train ride back from New York to Los Angeles, 3 days and 3 nights, Disney sits mostly alone, watching the country pass by outside the window, mile after mile. He has lost almost everything in a single meeting. His character, his team, his deal, all gone in less than 1 hour. He must now decide what to tell his wife, waiting for him back home, and how to tell her without frightening her about their future. Have you ever lost something you built with your own hands, simply because you trusted the wrong person? Somewhere on that long ride, Disney makes a firm decision. He knows he must build something entirely new. This time, he decides he will own it completely, from the very start, with no distributor able to take it away from him again. This lesson comes straight from what has just happened with Mintz, and he will never forget it. Working closely with a talented artist named Ub Iwerks, Disney begins sketching a brand new character, right there on the train. A small, cheerful mouse, with round ears and a friendly, curious face. At first, they name him Mortimer. Disney's wife, Lillian, does not like that name at all. Soon, together, they change it to something simpler, Mickey Mouse. Later that same year, in November of 1928, a short film called Steamboat Willie comes out in a New York theater. It is the first cartoon ever made with sound that truly matches the pictures on screen. Music, footsteps, and even a whistle, all timed perfectly to the animation. This kind of sound matching takes months of careful work to get exactly right, since Disney insists on doing it himself rather than leaving it to others. Audiences are amazed. Many have never seen or heard anything quite like it before. In any theater, anywhere. Word spreads fast, from city to city. Within a year, Mickey Mouse merchandise, toys, watches, and school bags starts appearing in stores across the country. Mickey Mouse becomes famous across the whole nation, almost overnight, and soon after, across much of the world too. This time, Disney signs his distribution deal very differently from before. He keeps the ownership of Mickey Mouse fully in his own hands, in writing, with no room left for confusion later. He reads every line of the contract himself, more than once, before signing anything at all. The painful lesson from the mince meeting is already changing how he does business, for the rest of his life. Can you imagine that? Losing nearly everything you had built, and then, within the very same year, creating the most famous cartoon character the world has ever known. By 1934, with Mickey Mouse now a huge success, Disney is ready for an even bigger risk. He tells his team, and eventually the whole film industry, about his next plan, the first ever full-length cartoon film, running a full 80 minutes, something no studio has ever attempted before. The story is an old fairy tale, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. People across the film business laugh at the idea, openly and often. Some newspapers call it Disney's folly, meaning his own foolish, expensive mistake. Even a few people inside his own studio have doubts, quietly, though they keep working anyway because they trust him. No one, outside voices say again and again, will sit still in a theater for 80 minutes just to watch a cartoon. It has never been done before, anywhere in the world, and many believe it never should be. Disney and his team spend years working on this one film. At the busiest point, more than 300 artists, painters, and writers work on it together. Far more people than any cartoon studio has ever gathered in one place before. They build entirely new tools just to draw depth and shadow correctly, so the forest and the castle in the story feel real, not flat. Every single frame, every color, every small movement of a hand or a leaf is drawn by hand, checked, and often redrawn, again and again, until it finally feels right to Disney's own eye. The studio spends far more money than planned, almost 4 times the first budget. Banks in Hollywood begin to call the film Disney's folly behind closed doors too, not just the newspapers. At one point, Disney has to borrow heavily against his own house just to finish the film on time, putting his family's home at real risk for the sake of one long cartoon. Then comes the night of the first public showing, in December of 1937, in Los Angeles. Some of the biggest names in Hollywood sit in that theater, many of them still expecting to see an expensive, embarrassing failure. The film begins. The theater grows quiet. Children in the audience cry during the sad parts and laugh out loud during the funny ones, just as Disney always hoped they would. The film ends. For one long moment, the whole theater stays completely silent. Then, all at once, the entire crowd rises to their feet, clapping, again and again, unable to stop. Some people in the audience are crying, this time from joy, not from disappointment. Newspaper reporters who came expecting to write about a costly failure instead write some of the warmest reviews of Disney's whole career. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs goes on to become the highest-earning film of the entire year, beating every other movie released in 1937, cartoon or not, and it earns back many times its huge cost within just a few months. The very people who once laughed at Disney's folly now ask him what he plans to make next. After this huge, hard-won success, life brings a difficult moment, too, much closer to home. In May of 1941, Disney's own team of artists walks out of the studio and goes on strike. They are angry about low pay, especially compared with other studios in Hollywood. They are angry, too, about the strict, controlling way Disney runs the studio day to day. Workers carry signs outside the studio gates. Some artists who support Disney cross the picket line to keep working, while others refuse to enter the building at all. The strike lasts for about 5 long weeks, and it becomes national news. It splits the studio deeply, artist against artist, longtime friend against longtime friend. Disney takes it very personally. For a man who built his whole company on trust and shared creative work, it feels like a second, deeper betrayal, this time from people he sees and works beside every single day. The strike finally ends with outside help from a government mediator, and many of the artists' demands about pay and working hours are met. Some of the artists who led the strike leave the studio for good afterward, taking their talent to rival studios across town. But something between Disney and the rest of his team never fully returns to how it was before that spring. Walt Disney continues working for decades after this. In 1955, he opens Disneyland, in California, a completely new kind of theme park, built entirely around storytelling rather than simple rides alone. He also moves into television, bringing his characters into American homes every single week, something almost no film studio had tried before him. He keeps working right up until his death in 1966, at 65 years old, from lung cancer, still planning new projects, including an even bigger park in Florida, until nearly the very end. The company he started in that small studio goes on to grow far larger than he ever saw himself, eventually including film studios, television networks, and theme parks on several continents, all still carrying his own name. So here is the real question, my friend. Why did this one man, once told he had no imagination at all, go on to build something so large, so lasting, and so loved around the entire world? 3 reasons stand out clearly when we look back at his whole story. First, he always turned each hard loss into a new beginning, and usually a better one. Losing Oswald and nearly losing everything on that train ride led directly to creating Mickey Mouse just days later. Second, he learned real, lasting lessons from real mistakes. Losing the rights to one character taught him, permanently, to always keep tight legal control of the next one, a lesson that protected his entire company for decades afterward. Third, he was willing to risk everything he had, his money, his time, his reputation in the industry, on an idea the whole business openly called foolish. Snow White proved every single doubter wrong, and opened the door to a completely new kind of filmmaking. Here is a small thought to consider, my friend. If Charles Mintz had never betrayed him back in 1928, Disney may have simply kept making Oswald cartoons for someone else, year after year, never truly owning his own work, never taking the bigger risks that came later. The world may never have met Mickey Mouse at all, or Snow White, or any of the stories that followed. One painful, humiliating meeting in a New York office changed the entire future of entertainment for generations of children still to come. And so, my friend, this story comes gently to its close. Let's go back to that newspaper office one final time. A young man stands there, holding drawings that one tired editor called worthless, with no imagination at all. He has no idea, standing on that street outside, what any of this will lead to. Now picture him again, years later, decades later. His name sits above one of the most imaginative, most loved companies the world has ever built. A company that still makes new stories for new children, long after his own life ended. Here is what truly connects those two very different moments. Being told no, or being told you are simply not good enough, was never the real end of his story. It was only ever a sign that it was time to try a new way forward. Every closed door in this story, the newspaper job, the bankrupt studio, the stolen rabbit, became, sooner or later, the start of something new. That same idea can guide you, too, right now, with your own English. If one method has not worked well for you so far, that does not mean you have failed at learning. It simply means it is time to try a different way, and to keep going anyway, one small step at a time, just as this one man did, again and again, across an entire lifetime. So tell me, my friend, are you more like young Disney, right after being told you are not good enough, standing on that street corner, ready to prove one tired editor wrong? Or are you more like Disney, after Mickey Mouse, already finding your own way, already building something new and bigger with each passing day? Type A or B in the comments below and tell me why. If this story helped you today, please subscribe. Join me here again tomorrow for another true story from history. Until tomorrow, my friend, take care of yourself and never stop learning.